Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. So, good morning to you. My name is David Whitehead. The first thing I have to do is to ask you to give Oscar a big round of applause. So it's a great pleasure to welcome you to the West Sussex Practice, oh dear, can you do about that? West Sussex Practice Managers Association Annual Conference for 2023. My name is David Whitehead. I'm a retired GP from Storrington, and once a year I get a phone call from Joe, who kindly asks me to chair this conference. And my wife Liz always says, yeah, do it. I think she's just keen to get me out of the house, really. This is your website. And I've added 5 stars. A, because I think the organisation is brilliant, but B, because I think you are all absolutely brilliant. Thank you for your hard work. I suspect that sometime yesterday you thought, oh crikey, have I really got time to come to the conference tomorrow when I'm so busy? Thank you for making the time, thank you for coming. Probably the most important thing I do today is this slide. So to tell you that the loos are out of these doors, you can turn right or you can turn left. Fire exit. I'm normally quite flippant about the fire exit, but it did strike me just now that actually you lot are quite important to the health of NHS Sussex, and without you, our patients might suffer. So let's take this bit seriously. If there is a fire, please, when you go down the stairs which you came up and out of the big glass doors through the atrium, if that fire escape is blocked, there's another one to the left. You go out of these doors and you turn left, and then you turn left again, and you actually end up going through a little coffee kitchen, but clearly marked there is another exit and some stairs that go to outside. Let's hope we don't need it. Telephones. Now, I wake up in a cold sweat quite often these days because last year there was a lot of dithering about whether or not we would be able to have our conference. Her Majesty the Queen had just died, there was a period of mourning, and there were to be no NHS meetings. Eventually we got permission to go ahead, but only if the chair offered a moving tribute. And I sat up the night before writing a very moving tribute. Some of you may remember it, and you may also remember that halfway through my phone went off. Actually, it was my dentist saying, where the hell are you? So I'll turn my phone off. I hope you'll turn your phone off completely, but I am a realist, and I think that's perhaps unlikely, but at least please put it to silent. It's traditional that I start this meeting by talking about how busy everybody is and how the stress levels are very, very high indeed. And I'm sure often you sit at your desk feeling like this. How can I cope? I read recently that 40% of NHS staff reported feeling unwell as a result of work-related stress. I have to say I was very surprised by that slide because I'd have put the figure far higher. We were here 1 year ago on the 15th of September, and do you know what, I've just been thinking that although everybody in this room has been working very hard and has had a very difficult professional working life since then, there are lots of other people in the world who have also had a difficult professional year. And I thought we might just remind ourselves that we're not the only ones who sometimes face professional difficulties. Last time we met, this lady was Prime Minister. She was halfway through her 49 period at Downing Street, and of course, it didn't end well. This chap hasn't had the best of years. He was no longer Prime Minister when we met, but he was still an MP. And then he was found by an all-party committee of parliamentarians to have misled Parliament, something I think which surprised many of us, but he felt that he could no longer stay on as an MP and resigned. You might think these guys have had a good year, really, King and Queen. What could possibly go wrong? Well, at their coronation, I think you may agree that they were totally upstaged by Penny Mordaunt carrying a very, very heavy sword. These guys haven't had the best of years. First of all, they gate crashed the Queen's lying in state, and then Philip Schofield, I won't go into any detail, nor will I talk about this gentleman very much. I feel a bit sorry for Therese Coffey. This time last year, she was Secretary of State for Health and Social Care, and I thought maybe she was quite a good egg, actually. But she only lasted in office for 6 weeks before there was a reshuffle, and she was demoted. She's now Secretary of State for Rural Affairs and Food. You may have heard a very moving statement she made in Parliament in April about turnips. These people will tell you that they have had a very bad year. This is the nurses, the junior doctors, and the consultants who feel that they've had such a terrible time that they all need to withdraw their labour and go on strike. I have sympathy with them. Am I the only one who wishes that they just wouldn't look quite so cheerful about it? I wish they wouldn't stand outside hospitals banging drums. I just don't think it's very professional, but perhaps I'm a bloody gun. Do you know who this is? This is a man called Graham Potter, who just before we met last September had resigned as manager of Brighton and Hove Albion and moved to Chelsea. Really interesting story, because he was a fantastic and very popular manager at Brighton, but things went hideously wrong for him at Chelsea, and he only lasted 6 months. I'd really like to talk to him about leadership, because I think at Brighton he was a great leader. I'd like to understand why he couldn't transfer those skills to South London. He'll write a book one day, it'll be interesting. These guys, I don't think, have had a good professional year. Not only were they beaten in the Champions League last night, but it was a good match, but they don't seem to be able to beat Brighton and Hove Albion. Talking of Brighton and Hove Albion, I need to make the point that it's a bit of a disaster that we're starting late, because I'm very determined that we finish on time. Why? Because tonight, Brighton, for the first time in their 122-year history, are playing European football. Anybody going? Oh, crumbs, I'm kind of disappointed. Well, I will be there waving the flag for you, and I hope you'll be glued to your phone to see how we're doing against a UK athlete. This man hasn't had a good year. He survived breaking the lockdown rules, did Matt Hancock, but he didn't survive going off to the jungle, and the Tories finally got fed up with him. And the man who was tipped maybe to be a Prime Minister one day is going to be leading Parliament at the next election. This chap hasn't had a great year. Well, it's partly his fault, isn't it? He's made these 5 pledges, one of which is to reduce NHS waiting times, which I don't think he's managed to do. This is Tom Curry, poor chap, plays for England. Well, he sort of plays for England. He only lasted 3 minutes in the first World Cup match before being sent off. And this man, well, he hasn't, well, I don't know if he's had a bad year or a good year, really. He's been arrested 4 times. He currently faces 91 charges of felony, and as you probably know, his popularity rating is going up and up and up and up. We live in a very strange world, don't we? This slide is to remind me to come back to the subject of general practice, but it's an interesting slide. It's from the NHS website. You go NHS, search general practice. This is the first picture that comes up. And there's a little box, and the writing is far too small for you to read, but it says general practice. our people are meeting the challenges of a growing and ageing population. I thought that was interesting. Do you feel like our people? It's a very sort of parental term, isn't it? It implies that the NHS really cares about you and loves you and looks after you and checks in on you every day to see how you're doing. You may or may not agree that that happens. The reason that we knew all about the bad times that those people had had was because of the press. The press notifies us of what's going well in the world, but more importantly, what's going badly in the world. And I've shown this sort of picture before because traditionally papers like to have a go at general practitioners. But I've noticed a little bit of a change this year. Here's some headlines about how bad A&E is, how long you have to wait for an ambulance, how long you have to wait for cancer treatment. And I think the general practice has slipped off the press's agenda. It's still there occasionally, of course. But there's a bit more sympathy, I'm pleased to say. Here's the Times talking about how GPs are drowning. And shock horror, here's a Mail Online headline. Are GPs really overworked and underpaid? You think, oh, here we go again. But down at the bottom here, they talk about how Britain's GPs are embattled. Who would have thought that the Daily Mail would ever describe us as embattled? So maybe things are just becoming a little more sympathetic towards us. The NHS, of course, is 75 years old. I'm quite old. I've been working in the NHS for over half of its lifespan. But who ever thought that it would ever be just this busy? How managers would be expected to do so many different jobs. It hasn't always gone well in the NHS. We tend to think things have gone wrong in the last couple of years, but Virginia Bottomley quoted there was the Minister of Health when I became a GP in 1979. She's Peter Bottomley's wife, of course. There she is talking about GPs' morale having plummeted. Above that there's a headline, 1960 that is, everybody in the NHS is overworked. Down here is a headline from 1967 saying there's a GP shortage. So things have always gone a little bit wobbly in the NHS, and it's not surprising because the NHS is just such a complicated machine. I firmly believe that the pivot to that machine, the thing that keeps the NHS working, is the bottom bit, and that is primary care. If primary care works well, then the whole thing balances. And when primary care goes wrong, I'm afraid I think the NHS goes wrong. So, what is the plan for today? The plan is that we were going to smile, even when the IT doesn't work. We're going to share our experiences. We're going to talk about things that have gone well this year and things that haven't gone so well. We're going to network and make new friends, and we're going to hear hope for the future, that that big NHS machine is going to balance up nicely, and that general practice at the bottom of it will be highly valued. Thank you. I'm going to introduce Jo Whaley, not that she needs introducing now, but she is going to come and tell us how wonderful the WSPMA is. Thanks very much.
Morning, everyone. Sorry, we're just waiting for the IT to catch up. Thank you. Hi. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Jo Whaley. I'm a practice manager in St Lawrence Surgery in Worthing, and I'm chair of West Sussex Practice Managers. Also